Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Don Ma. A breakthrough just days before Trump's tariff deadline. The U.S. strikes a new trade deal with Vietnam, locking in tariffs on imports and securing duty-free access for American goods. Speaker Johnson can only afford to lose 3 votes, and already at least 3 House Republicans maintain that they will not support the president's big budget bill as amended by the Senate. A jury today acquits former music icon Sean Diddy Combs of alleged crimes that carry a sentence of up to life in prison, but he may still serve time in prison on lesser charges. 2 Chinese nationals have been arrested for allegedly spying on U.S. Navy facilities. What is China's endgame in its espionage activities? We talked to a China expert. Wisconsin Supreme Court strikes down an abortion ban from 1849. The ruling leaves certain limits in place. Moscow and Kyiv respond to the U.S. possibly halting some weapon shipments to Ukraine. Multiple reports say the Pentagon is pausing some air defense deliveries.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
Good afternoon, and thanks for joining us. Trump said this morning that the U.S. has struck a trade deal with Vietnam following months of negotiations. Trump said goods from Vietnam would face a 20% tariff. He said any transshipments from third countries would face a 40% levy. The rate is lower than an initial 46% levy Trump announced in April. Vietnam would also provide the U.S. with more market access, with U.S. exports to the country facing no tariffs. The White House and the Vietnamese Trade Ministry did not immediately comment. The One Big Beautiful bill is now on the House floor. The House Republican leadership is whipping the votes to pass the president's agenda, while Democrats are seeking to delay the process by lining up and voicing the same request.
I yield to the gentlewoman from New York, Ms. Gillen, for the purpose of unanimous consent request.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to amend the rule to make
In order, the amendment at the desk that protects against any cuts to Medicaid and SNAP.
The gentlelady from North Carolina has not yielded for that purpose, and therefore the unanimous consent request cannot be entertained.
Our Washington correspondent, Luis Eduardo Martinez, joins us live from the Capitol with the latest. Good afternoon, Luis. Tell us more of what's happening there.
Of course, Don. Well, what we just saw was House Democrats lining up to make a procedural request, which is not valid. They wanted to include an amendment to the debate of the One Big Beautiful bill that would strike out any cuts to Medicaid or SNAP. But the place to do that was last night during the Rules Committee, where the amendments that are going to be considered are decided. Any new amendments that want to be included into the debate need to be introduced by the manager of the bill or the Speaker of the House in this case. So they're trying to delay the procedure. There's still a vote expected today on the rule to consider this bill. So it's a procedural vote before the actual debate begins. And Democrats continue their messaging that Medicaid cuts are going to strip away health care benefits from millions of Americans. Let's listen to what Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez had to say about this today at the House floor.
This bill is a deal with the devil. It explodes our national debt. It militarizes our entire economy, and it strips away health care and basic dignity of the American people. For what? To give Elon Musk a tax break?
It needs to be explained that the One Big Beautiful bill, the so-called cuts to Medicaid, are mainly focused to reform the program to make it more efficient. Most of the cuts will be enacted starting in 2031, and people that might lose their benefits are people, for example, 19 to 64 years old who are able-bodied and who do not show proof that they're either working, volunteering, or receiving an education. And of course, Republicans argue that that if you are an able-bodied and between 19 and 64 years old, you should either be doing one of those three things or should not be receiving Medicaid benefits. Now, in the Senate, Republicans tried to also strip Medicaid benefits to illegal immigrants. That was shot down by the Senate parliamentarian and then shut down by Senate Democrats in a majority, a 3/3 majority vote that was required in the Senate. So it must be said that the messaging from Democrats might not stick. It also will be important to see that the effects of the spending cuts are close to $900 billion to the Medicaid program won't start, and people won't start feeling them until 2031. Don.
And Luis, what is the strategy House Republicans are employing to whip the votes?
Well, through the entire process, the strategy of Speaker of the House Mike Johnson and his leadership team was to exert maximum pressure on House Republicans at every point and every step of the process just to get the ball moving, just to get to the next step. But now we're at the final step, Don. Now it's voting on the final passage of the bill. And the messaging coming from House Republican leadership is that 85% of what House Republicans already passed over a month ago is included in the bill, and particularly the president's agenda is in this bill. Let's listen to what Majority Leader Steve Scalise had to say about this.
At the end of the day, when you look at the whole totality of the bill, still over 85% of what the House passed a few weeks ago are still in this final product. And, the bottom line is the Trump agenda is still in this bill.
So, Don, in the one big, beautiful bill, we have no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, the extension of the 2017 Trump-era taxes, also an extension or an expansion of the child tax credit, all things that the president promised during that campaign, and also $1.2 trillion in spending cut to the federal budget, which is also something the president ran on and many House Republicans. So all of that is in the one big, beautiful bill. Now remains to be seen whether House Republican leadership can whip the votes today.
And Luis, who are the holdouts so far?
Well, we know that Congressman Thomas Massie, throughout the entire process, has opposed this bill. Congressman from Kentucky, he believes that increasing the debt ceiling, which is included in the one big beautiful bill, is something that goes against his principle and against what he campaigned on. Also, we saw last night during the Rules Committee vote for the rule on the one big beautiful bill that Congressman Chip Roy and Congressman Ralph Norman voted against it and publicly said that they are still and maintain themselves against this bill as it currently stands. We also saw earlier today the House Freedom Caucus release a 3-page memo outlining why they are not satisfied with the Senate amendment version of the one big beautiful bill, and particularly highlight how the Inflation Reduction Act green credits have not been repealed completely as they wanted them, and also how illegal immigrants have not been stripped of Medicaid benefits in the Senate amended version of the one big beautiful bill. Back to you, Don.
Okay, Luis, thank you very much. The Wisconsin Supreme Court has struck down the state's 176-year-old abortion ban. Today's 4-3 ruling invalidates an 1849 law that made terminating a pregnancy a felony. The law was in effect until 1973. The Supreme Court's Roe v. Wade decision that year legalized abortion nationwide. However, legislators never officially repealed the ban. In 2022, the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade in a 6-3 ruling. The decision didn't ban abortion nationwide, but rather left the issue up to state legislatures. Lawmakers opposed to abortion argue that the High Court's 2022 decision to overturn Roe reactivated the law. Wisconsin's Supreme Court decision leaves in place a 2015 law that bans abortion after 20 weeks. Some states have near total abortion bans. Others prohibit abortions after certain points during pregnancy. Iran today put into effect a new law suspending cooperation with the UN nuclear watchdog, the IAEA. The Islamic Republic accuses the agency of siding with Western countries and providing a justification for Israel's airstrikes. The strikes began today after the IAEA voted to declare Iran in violation of obligations under the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. The law stipulates that any future inspection of Iran's nuclear sites by the agency needs approval by Tehran's Supreme National Security Council. Meanwhile, Iran's foreign minister says the U.S. bombing of the Fordow nuclear site caused serious and extensive damage to the facility. He said the regime's Atomic Energy Organization is currently undertaking evaluation and assessment. Moscow and Kyiv responded to reports saying the U.S. is halting some weapon shipments to Ukraine. Meanwhile, Russian President Vladimir Putin speaks with the president of France for the first time in years. NTD's international correspondent Arian Pastar has the Ukraine update.
Russia and Ukraine have different takes on reports saying that the U.S. is halting some weapon shipments to Kyiv. A senior Ukrainian lawmaker calls Washington's decision, quote, painful for Kyiv's efforts to defend against Russian airstrikes. The attacks have intensified in recent weeks. Russia, meanwhile, argues that this would bring a quicker end to the conflict.
The less weaponry is supplied to Ukraine, the closer the end of the special military operation.
The Pentagon reportedly plans to halt some shipments of air defense missiles and other munitions. That's according to the Associated Press, Reuters, and CNN, which all cite sources familiar with the matter. And Russian President Vladimir Putin and French President Emmanuel Macron speak for the first time in almost 3 years. They held a 2-hour-long phone call on Tuesday.
It was the initiative of the French side. But you know, President Putin repeatedly said about his readiness to conduct a dialogue. The conversation was very substantive.
Paris says that Macron reiterated France's unwavering support for Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity, with the French president calling for a ceasefire and lasting agreement between Russia and Ukraine. Arian Pastar, NTD News.
We're turning now to the Middle East, where a potential truce is in the works. President Trump says Israel has agreed to the conditions of a proposed 60-day ceasefire in Gaza. The Hamas terror group suggested today it was open to a ceasefire agreement, but stopped short of accepting the proposal announced by Trump. Here's more.
Trump on Truth Social said Israel had agreed to the conditions to finalize a 60-day ceasefire, quote, during which time we will work with all parties to end the war. He also said representatives for Qatar and Egypt would deliver what he called this final proposal to Hamas. And were the Iran-backed group not to accept this deal, Trump said the situation in the Middle East would, quote, only get worse. The president told reporters earlier in the day that he is hopeful that a ceasefire for hostages deal can be achieved next week between the two sides. He is set to meet Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu at the White House on Monday.
We're also going to talk about Gaza. We want to get the rest. We got a lot of hostages back, but we're going to talk about Gaza.
Hamas has said it is willing to free remaining hostages in Gaza under any deal to end the war, while Israel says it can only end if Hamas is disarmed and dismantled. Hamas refuses to lay down its arms. Throughout the conflict, the two sides have shown little sign of a readiness to budge from their entrenched positions. Trump and his aides appear to be seeking to use any momentum from U.S. and Israeli strikes on Iran nuclear sites, as well as a ceasefire that took hold last week in that conflict to secure a lasting truce in the war in Gaza.
And joining us now to discuss Israel agreeing to a 6-day Gaza ceasefire, according to Trump, is retired Captain Douglas Ernest, U.S. veteran, U.S. Army veteran. Good afternoon, Captain Ernest. So given that previous ceasefires have sort of not worked out that well, what makes this one more likely to hold, in your opinion?
What's more likely to hold for is that the Trump administration has used a pragmatic approach in Iran to bring an end to that conflict. And now that we've been unbridled and we've had a magnanimous framework that actually worked, we gave empathy to the enemy in that part of the globe. We can now use that momentum and these inertial forces of warfare to bring it to an end. We can use a way to dance. And I talk about dancing because that's what the Trump administration's doing. They're doing an outstanding job. They're making a transformative impact on the Middle East. And with this momentum that they've got from their win in Iran, we actually got a good chance of bringing this conflict to an end and avoid any further loss of life.
Right. I mean, it takes two to dance, right? But so far, Hamas has not come out with anything yet. And we know Iran provides funding, weapons as well, and training to Hamas. And the recent joint Israeli-U.S. bombing campaign perhaps also maybe disrupted morale for Hamas. So my question is, do you think Hamas is coming to this, entering these negotiations from a position of relative weakness?
Oh, absolutely. They've been pummeled. The Palestinians have also been pummeled as a people. We're looking at 200,000 deaths by the Palestinian, 200,000 injured and dead. We got about 58,000 Palestinians that passed. We also have about 140,000 Palestinians been injured. And this is with some very bad reporting in that part of the area because they don't have technology. Internet goes in and out. Jewish state is only about 10,000 injured and dead. And I say only, it's still 1/20th of the casualties that the Palestinians have involved. The Hamas has been estimated from strategy perspective, military analysts to have about 80-90% of their infrastructure taken out. So absolutely, they've been decapitated. It's a concrete indicator that they need to put a detail together when they come to these tables. But this is true Hamas rhetoric, how they always go back and forth. But right now, the number one goal by the Trump administration is to release those 50 remaining hostages, get this 60-day window to come into effect. We can then use these symbolic effects of what happened in Iran and get momentum in this part of the Middle East to have a transformative impact in the Middle East and finally bring peace to this part of the world that everybody around the globe is asking for.
Okay, speaking of peace, by your estimates or your best guess, what are the prospects of this potential 60-day ceasefire evolving into a permanent peace agreement?
I think the prospects are extremely high. The Trump administration has been working on this deal for about 6 months, and we've had this back and forth. We take 2 steps forward and get pushed back 1 step. The Trump administration, again, is coming off one of the biggest military feats in history. When we study strategy in the military, there is no 12-day wins where you take out the enemy's arsenal. We had a tremendous win in the Middle East recently, and we did it amicably. We provided a magnanimous framework. And by magnanimous, I mean we have empathy with the enemy. We ended that era of nuclear weaponry in that part of the world, but we also allowed the Iranians to save face. This gives Hamas a chance to also save face. It gives them a chance to get to the table and look like they came through with the power of strength and were able to leave amicably and put a deal together instead of being pummeled to their death and having no leadership whatsoever in Gaza. Moving forward, I think you're going to see a deal put together. I think you're going to see pressure from President Trump himself, Pete Hegseth, Secretary of Defense, and you're going to see a deal come together that is going to be great for the American people. Finally, to understand this wholly, you have to understand they're doing a triangulated approach to get this deal done. They're communicating what they want to get done. They're warning if they don't do a deal that they're going to be destroyed. And finally, they have given Israel hands-off approach where they can have a dominant engagement in that area. So Hamas most likely is going to put a deal together.
Okay, you're talking about deals, and I would like you to just elaborate. And let me just add to the fact that Trump says he hopes Hamas takes this deal because he says it's not going to get better, it's only going to get worse. So can you elaborate this for us?
Yeah, absolutely. As I just mentioned, the triangulated approach to warfare. And I just mentioned it's something that you study about in strategy and about military planning and try to end a war to at least decapitate your enemy to make sure that they can't fight back. When you have dominating engagement over your enemy, that means you control the airspace, you control the weaponry in and out, you control the routes in and out. Israel has control of the humanitarian aid. We have dominating engagement control of that part of the world. They really don't have any choice but to make a deal, or they're going to be leveled and it will be completely brought out of power. We don't want that. We want to find a way to end this amicably. We want to find a way to finally achieve efficacy. And what I mean by achieving efficacy, it's one of those things that you read about in strategy books, and that is getting your desired end state, which number one is to end human suffering and bring this conflict to an end. So finally, we believe as strategists in our field that this is going to finally come to an end. We're about 90% there, and we're about to wait the next few days and see if Donald Trump and his administration can finally put this together.
What is your analysis on the hostage situation, the hostage issue? Is it central to this ceasefire push? Do you think Hamas will settle for a partial release without a full Israeli withdrawal? Where do you think stand in your opinion?
Hamas does not play by the magnanimous framework that I just mentioned. Israel and the U.S. and most democracy societies' end state is to sustain human life and not allow hostages to be injured. I don't think a lot of those hostages are going to be free. They're not. Some of them are going to be found to be dead. Some are going to be hurt in the aftermath of the wars that's been going in this area. There's not accurate reporting that's come out, but the estimates is that there's 50 still alive. I believe that in order to put this deal together, they're going to have to release these hostages. And I think you're going to see more of that come out this week. We usually have a trickling effect by Hamas. They usually don't release them all at one time. They usually have stages, phase 1, 2, 3, 4, where they release 6 at a time, 8 at a time, starting with the most weekend first. So we're going to see some hostages come out in the next week. And again, building on the administration's current wins of that part of the world and the transformative impact that we've seen from these deals being made with Iran and bringing a ceasefire, I think we're going to see the inertial forces of this momentum continue, and we're going to see some wins for the Trump administration as part of the world. That's not only good for America to save resources and save human life, but it's good for the globe to bring this conflict to an end.
Okay, Captain Ernest, I'll just ask you one more thing, and if I may, I would like to speculate a little bit. We saw the 60-day deal that President Trump offered Iran, and then it didn't take it, and we saw what happened, right? The most devastating bombing of those facilities. What happens if this deal fails? What's next?
You know, as we mentioned the triangulated approach, it's a dominant engagement. We have complete domination in that region. And I don't mean the U.S., I mean Israel, our strategic alliance partner. If a deal isn't done, we're going to see continued fighting. We're going to see urban warfare. We're going to see more in and out. We're going to see more casualties on both sides. And worse, what would happen is the Palestinian people are going to suffer. We've seen the Gaza humanitarian aid and how we see a lot of these people, these poor souls that are just trying to get food, and they're being killed. They're being killed by their own people. They're being killed by indiscriminate warfare and munitions that are being set off. So we're going to see a lot more suffering by the Palestinian people if they cannot put this deal together. And if you just look at some of the news feeds that come out and some of the perspectives of Palestinian people, they've had it. Their country has been 90 to 95% decimated. It's going to take decades to put it back together. The people of this country are suffering. The elderly are dying. Those that are sick are not getting help. So Hamas is on its last leg, if not their final foot. It's over for Hamas. They must put a deal together. If they don't, they're going to be dominated and they're going to be completely destroyed.
Okay, Captain Ernest, it's always great to talk to you.
The pleasure is mine. Everybody have a great day out there.
Coming up, a massive drug trafficking bust in New Jersey. The U.S. attorney says 24 suspects have been charged with distributing fentanyl, heroin, and crack cocaine. We have that story and more after the break.
With almost 4 decades in the spotlight, Cindy Crawford has never lost her stunning glow. With her gorgeous, age-defying skin, US Weekly says whatever she's doing, it's clearly working. How does her skin still look firm, smooth, and youthful at 59? It's meaningful beauty. And now, with new advanced formulas, it's better than ever, delivering our age-defying ingredients even deeper into the skin to fight wrinkles where they begin. Just wait until you see the difference meaningful beauty can make for you.
Instant hydration, instant plumping. My skin looks amazing. What I'm most proud of is over 5 million women have trusted Meaningful Beauty, and they're getting great results, and I get that feedback from them in airports, supermarkets, walking down the street, and I love it.
And today, we are celebrating 20 years of Meaningful Beauty with a brand new offer you don't want to miss. You can get the entire advanced Meaningful Beauty system with all 5 age-defying super treatments. And when you order today, you'll receive our Targeted Treatment Duo, a $128 value free. Introducing the Wrinkle Smoothing Capsules to target crow's feet, forehead lines, and lines around your mouth. Plus, you'll also get the new Skin Renewing Facial Tool with heat, massage, and red light to boost the absorption of the wrinkle smoothing capsules and reduce the appearance of puffiness. The Skin Renewing Facial Tool and the Wrinkle Smoothing Capsules together create Meaningful Beauty's amazing Targeted Treatment Duo.
This plus this equals incredible results.
Get all this, a $300 value for just $49.95. But you must act quickly. Results guaranteed or your money back.
If you haven't tried Meaningful Beauty yet, this new offer is something you don't want to miss.
This special offer is not available in any store, so don't wait. Scan the code, call the number below, or go to meaningfulbeauty.com right now.
Hi, I'm Ty Pennington, here for Choice Home Warranty. They protect my home from expensive repairs, and they can do the same for you. No matter if it's your refrigerator, plumbing, or more than 20 other home systems and appliances, Choice Home Warranty has saved millions of homeowners a whole lot of money. For a low monthly fee, you get their nationwide network of trusted local technicians with plans that cover repairs and replacements done quickly and the right way. No more headaches searching for technicians. No more budget-breaking chaos. Just a peace of mind of having Choice Home Warranty at your service. Call Choice Home Warranty now and save big with their special offer of your first month free and free limited roof coverage. Call now.
Call Choice Home Warranty for your free personalized quote and to get your first month free. Call in the next 5 minutes, and as our special offer, you'll receive free limited roof coverage. Call now to lock in your rate and save big. Call 800-210-6422. 800-210-6422.
Former hip-hop powerhouse Sean Combs faces a partial guilty verdict today after a jury acquitted him of more serious charges involving racketeering, conspiracy, and sex trafficking. NTD Sean Marshall, or rather Arlene Richards, has more.
After a 7-week trial, a New York jury took just 3 days to acquit music icon Sean Combs of 1 count of racketeering conspiracy and 2 counts of sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion. These are 3 of 5 counts leveled against the 55-year-old ex-rapper. Those charges carry a punishment of up to life in prison. The jury, however, did find that Combs was guilty of 2 counts of transportation to engage in prostitution, which could result in Combs spending up to 20 years in prison. The ex-rapper had been accused of running a criminal enterprise and abusing, threatening, and coercing victims to fulfill his sexual desires from 2004 through 2024. Now a convicted felon, his downfall came after his girlfriend, the R&B singer Cassie Ventura, alleged sexual assault and violence during their 11-year relationship. Ventura's attorney said he was pleased with the verdict.
We're pleased that he's finally been held responsible for 2 federal crimes, something that he's never faced in his life. He still faces substantial jail time. Of course, we would have liked to have seen a conviction on the sex crimes in RICO, but we understand beyond a reasonable doubt is a high standard, and we're just pleased that he still faces substantial jail time.
Ventura testified at trial about drug-fueled days-long sex marathons and violence she endured as Combs' girlfriend from 2007 through 2018. Hotel surveillance video from 2016 shows Combs dragging and kicking Ventura several times. Ventura's attorney read a statement after she testified.
I hope that my testimony has given strength and a voice to other survivors and can help others who have suffered to speak up.
Combs' defense team didn't deny his history of domestic abuse, but emphasized that he wasn't on trial for that. 2 other women gave graphic testimony of allegations of sexual assault and violence or threats of blackmail. The ex-rapper didn't take the stand, nor did his attorneys call any witnesses. He's been held without bail at the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn since his arrest in September 2024. It's unclear whether or not he will be released from custody as he awaits sentencing. Combs still faces several civil suits accusing him of sexual misconduct. He has consistently maintained that the allegations are false. Arlene Richards, NTD News.
As President Trump's July 9th deadline approaches, a trade deal with Japan looks less and less likely. But the president says talks with other countries are going better. Here's how things stand right now.
Liberation Day.
As the tariff deadline draws near, President Trump spoke to reporters about potential deals with several countries. Trump said once again Tuesday he isn't planning on extending the July 9th deadline, and he expressed doubt that an agreement with Japan could be reached by then.
We dealt with Japan. I'm not sure if we're going to make a deal. I doubt it with Japan. They're very tough.
Trump suggested he could impose a tariff of 30 or 35% on Japan, well above the 24% he announced in April, and then later paused. But he said a deal with India could happen.
I think we're going to have a deal with India, possibly. And that's going to be a different kind of a deal. It's going to be a deal where we're able to go in and compete. Right now, India doesn't accept anybody in. I think India is going to do that, and if they do that, we're going to have a deal for much less tariffs.
Speaking to Fox News Tuesday, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said a deal was very close. Despite a recent deal with China, Bessent said rare earth products are not coming to U.S. quickly enough. Bessent told Fox News he thinks this will change.
We are hoping that they will flow at a faster rate. Rare earth magnets are flowing. They are not flowing as they did before April 4th, but we are confident that the Chinese will live up to their side of the deal.
Meanwhile, the European Union Trade Commissioner Marcos Šefčovič has so far welcomed draft proposals from the U.S., but the 27-member EU says its regulations on social media and other tech companies, which are much stricter than those in the U.S., are not up for negotiation. Indonesia and Thailand have also expressed optimism about talks with the U.S. Britain, meanwhile, has already managed to reduce tariffs on its cars from nearly 28% to just 10%, as well as remove them entirely for aircraft engines and other aerospace goods. Tariffs on British steel and aluminum are still under negotiation. South Korea, on the other hand, has said it would seek an extension on the July 9th deadline. On Monday, the Department of Homeland Security said Customs and Border Protection has collected more than $100 billion in customs revenue since Trump came back to office. It said more than $80 billion of that came from tariffs. In a statement, the department said Customs had achieved a collection success rate of more than 99%.
Irish Trade Minister Simon Harris says his American counterpart Jameson Greer is open to a deal on pharmaceutical trade with the European Union. He said the two officials discussed a potential agreement between the U.S. and EU last month. The EU reportedly wants immediate relief from tariffs as part of any trade deal by a Trump-imposed July 9th deadline. The bloc also wants a deal to cover commercial aircraft and parts, pharmaceuticals, and semiconductors. Trump said in June pharma tariffs would be announced shortly. Hiring in the private sector contracted in June, marking the first decline since March 2023. This suggests the weakness of the U.S. labor market may be accelerating. A payroll processor called ADP released the National Employment Report this week. It says that private sector payrolls fell by 33,000 last month. Small businesses, those with 1 to 49 payrolls, were hit the hardest, losing 47,000 jobs. Large companies accounted for all of the employment gains, registering 30,000 new positions. But economists are typically skeptical of the ADP payroll numbers. That's because they often diverge from official Bureau of Labor Statistics data due to methodology. The June jobs report will be released on July 3rd, a day earlier than usual due to the 4th of July holiday. 24 suspected gang members have been charged with drug trafficking in Newark, New Jersey. Prosecutors say the defendants distributed large quantities of fentanyl, heroin, and crack cocaine. U.S. Attorney Alina Abba announced the charges today.
3 members of the gangs are also charged with possession of a machine gun that was used in the shooting of a rival gang territory in Newark, New Jersey. 1 other member of the gang is charged separately with attempted murder, unlawful possession of a firearm, and possession of narcotics with the intent to distribute. The defendants charged in the drug conspiracy face a mandatory minimum penalty of 10 years in prison, maximum potential penalty of life in prison, and a $10 million fine. The defendants charged for possession of the machine gun each face up to 10 years in prison.
The charges are the result of a 14-month investigation conducted by Homeland Security Investigations, the U.S. Attorney's Office, and the Newark Police Department. The defendants in custody are scheduled to make initial appearances in federal court this afternoon. 5 defendants remain at large. A look now at the issue of men competing in women's sports. The University of Pennsylvania has reached an agreement with the Department of Education, one that strips a transgender swimmer of all medals won in the women's category. NTD's Daniel Monahan has a closer look.
The resolution agreement strips transgender athlete Leah Thomas of an NCAA Division I crown in the women's category in 2022 and all records as a female competitor at the University of Pennsylvania. It also requires the university to bar males from participating in female athletic programs or using women's bathrooms and locker rooms. The school must also issue a personal written apology to every female swimmer who competed against Leah Thomas. Education Secretary Linda McMahon praised the university for correcting what she called past harms against women and girls, speaking on Fox News.
We hope that that agreement is going to be a template for other universities who acknowledge that there is no room for men and women's sports, not only during the competition, but also in the locker room and other intimate spaces.
President Trump earlier this year signed an executive order prohibiting males from competing in women's sports, citing Title IX laws passed in 1972 to protect women's athletics. In April, the Trump administration suspended $175 million in federal aid to UPenn and warned the school it would lose more funding unless Thomas's titles were rescinded.
Today is an utter triumph for President Trump and for the administration, but mostly for the women and girls who will come behind the Riley Gaines and the Paula Scanlons and others.
Thomas won a Division I NCAA Women's Swimming Championship in the 500-yard freestyle event in 2022 after competing on the men's team from 2017 to 2020. Riley Gaines is a former University of Kentucky swimmer who competed against Thomas. She was required to share a locker room with the transgender athlete and has since become a vocal advocate against male participation in women's sports.
So many sat idly by and watched and actually reprimanded us as women if we even dared to speak about this.
Gaines expressed her gratitude to President Trump and McMahon.
I feel vindicated. I feel like pigs are flying. I feel like hell has frozen over. So it is a fantastic day, of course, for sanity, for common sense. But I think more broadly for women, for humanity, for the little girl that I'm growing inside of me right now that I will welcome to the world in just a few weeks.
UPenn says it remains committed to a welcoming, inclusive community and noted that it complied with NCAA rules and Title IX as interpreted at the time. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
An end to a murder case that shook the nation. Brian Koberger, who is charged with the murders of 4 Idaho students back in November 2022, has pleaded guilty in court today, avoiding the death penalty. Brian Koberger was charged with murder after stabbing 4 Idaho University students to death inside this off-campus house in 2022. He agreed to a guilty plea 1 month before his quadruple murder trial was set to begin. The deal involves Koberger pleading guilty to 4 counts of murder, a move that skirts the death penalty. It brings an end to the years-long legal proceedings against him. The killings shook the small college town of Moscow, Idaho, as law enforcement spent weeks searching for the suspect. CBS and its parent company Paramount Global have agreed to pay what could be up to $30 million to settle a lawsuit over a controversial 60 Minutes interview. Trump argued the network deceptively edited remarks by then Vice President Kamala Harris, accusing CBS of interfering in the 2024 election. Paramount is not admitting any wrongdoing, but has agreed to a new policy requiring full transcripts of future presidential candidate interviews to be released after they air, subject to any redactions related to legal or national security concerns. Paramount told media outlets the money will go to the Trump's future presidential library, not to the president himself. It said the settlement did not involve an apology. Coming up, 2 Chinese nationals have been arrested for allegedly spying on U.S. Navy facilities. What is China's endgame in its espionage activities? We talk to a China expert after the break.
Focus on beauty, showcase nature, share kindness, feel brightness. 2025, the 5th NTD International Photography Competition. Capture the beautiful moments in your eyes. Your works will be showcased in galleries and on multiple online platforms, appreciated and collected. Please visit photo.ntdtv.com.
Ethan was shot in the head in his best friend's house with an unsecured gun. The father, the gun owner, he stored his 3 guns and bullets in a shoebox. That has to be the most horrific experience that a human could ever have.
I didn't ask to lose my mother, or to be abused at 5 years old. I didn't ask to be kicked out of my house with nowhere to go. I'm so sorry. I didn't ask for any of this. But I did ask for help, and Covenant House was there. Thanks to their love and support, and to generous people like you, I got what I needed to take control of my life.
For the young people who didn't ask to be put in unthinkable situations, Covenant House is there providing safety, hope, and a brighter future. Call or go online now. For a gift of only $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, you can provide hot meals, safe shelter, medical care, and love to more than 2,000 young people who sleep at a Covenant House every night. 1 in 10 young adults will experience homelessness this year. Your gift can help reach them when they need it most.
I didn't ask for my parents and my family to disown me. I didn't ask to end up in a homeless shelter. The beauty of it all is that I found Covenant House.
The need is overwhelming, but your monthly support will make sure no young person is ever turned away. Call or go online right now to safeplacetosleep.org with your gift of just $19 a month. With your monthly donation, you'll receive this soft, comforting blanket as a reminder of the warmth and safety your gift will provide a young person tonight.
Covenant House really helped me and really helped mold me into the woman I am today. If there's no Covenant House, where would I be today?
Your monthly gift is urgently needed to reach young people in communities like yours who didn't ask to be put in unthinkable situations. Show them they're loved and not alone. Call the number on your screen or go online to safeplacetosleep.org.
Two Chinese nationals have been arrested for allegedly spying on U.S. Navy facilities and attempting to recruit military personnel on behalf of China's intelligence services. This is according to the Department of Justice. Here to discuss is retired Colonel Grant Newsom, Senior Fellow, Center for Security Policy, and author of the book, When China Attacks. Good afternoon, Grant. Tell us, what do you think could China be gaining from detailed personnel information from Navy recruitment centers?
Well, it gives you targeting information so that you can potentially approach and recruit U.S. service members to provide you with secrets. This is the spying game. The Chinese do it on a scope and a scale that you can hardly imagine. But this is just one aspect of a very multi-front attack, espionage attack on the United States. There's no part of American society, economic, military, scientific, political, that isn't under attack by the Chinese communists. It's on a scale nobody's even dreamed of.
Okay, but talking specifically about this, what is actually in the naval base that may be of interest to Chinese intelligence?
Well, when you get into a naval base like these guys did, and like many other Chinese have done and tried to do, from Alaska down to Key West, Florida, trying to get onto U.S. bases, sometimes successfully. If you can take pictures of things, it helps the other guys' situational awareness, but also you look at ships, you see the radar arrays, you can see the way the weaponry exists, the way it's laid out. It all helps. It's pieces of a puzzle that allows an adversary to really understand that who he's fighting and what he has as well. If we could get into a Chinese base, I assure you that with a camera and some electronic equipment, our guys could pick up all sorts of useful stuff. This is what militaries want to do. They want the information, but here the Chinese are coming all out to get it. It may seem innocuous. The guy just comes on and takes a picture of the post exchange or something. And what's the big deal? Well, to a trained collector, you can make a lot of this, and it will give you an advantage that will allow you to defeat your enemy if the time comes to actually fight him.
Okay, but why are they? I mean, it looks like based on the DOJ complaint, it looks like these Chinese nationals were allegedly targeting lower-level Navy recruits as opposed to targeting, higher-level officers. Why is that?
Well, who's going to be more a vulnerable target? A guy making $1,500 a month or a guy making $8,000 a month? You want your new people who are fairly naive often. They don't make much money. And you'll find that in the cases where the Chinese have had some success, these are often people of Chinese origins, either immediate or in the past. And they're just helping the motherland, and they're getting money in return. And an E1 and E2, that's the very lowest ranks, sometimes they will have access to all the information. And we've seen that with some of the leaks during the global war on terror. These were very low-level service members who provided pretty close to the crown jewels on some occasions. So you always want to go after the most vulnerable person. And by definition, that's going to be a lower-ranking person. The Walker spy ring, for example, in the 80s that really gave the Russians all sorts of our submarine technology, that was really run by enlisted people. And it did immense harm to us. So this is just a fundamental of the intelligence business. You go after the most vulnerable people. Those are often the lowest ranking.
Okay, so Grant, I was looking into this and I saw a point that perhaps is a pattern that I've seen from elsewhere. Why is China interested in recruiting individuals with personal, perhaps, or cultural ties to China? For example, the Navy recruit, right, whose mother was Chinese.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's easier. You have an ethnic connection. You can appeal to it. You can appeal to their sort of sense of patriotism. They may not see themselves as completely American just yet. And that's actually a common argument you'd make or claim, sort of way to persuade, is you're just helping, your motherland. It's not a big deal. And it works. And also it's easier to communicate. If they're speaking Chinese, they may have family members who will persuade them. Excuse me, they may have family members back in China that can be pressured. And keep in mind that the Chinese passed a national intelligence law in 2017 or so that requires every Chinese person everywhere to cooperate with the Ministry of State Security on matters of intelligence collection. So you can't really say no. But you naturally want to go after somebody that's an easier target. Where you have an ethnic connection, it's much, much easier.
How common is it for Chinese intelligence to cultivate operatives over multiple years and then activate them?
No, it's incredibly common. As I said, the scale of what they do is just unbelievable. For example, we might have, say, 5 case officers to put onto a target. The Chinese would have 500. They operate everywhere, and they go after every single imaginable target. And this is something that's hard for us to sort of wrap our head around, because we tend to take a very low-focused view, almost a very narrow view about what we're going after. So the Chinese is like a giant vacuum cleaner. They have the time, the resources, the money to put into it, and they do.
Okay, I'll just ask you one more thing. I was watching that interview with Trump on Fox News the other day, and President Trump was asked about China's cyber attack and hacking activities. I don't know if you saw that interview. And then Trump responded saying something like the U.S. We're doing the same to China. So while I have you here, what do you make of that?
Well, I hope we are. I'm not sure that we are. The Chinese have been immensely successful at getting into our networks, our critical infrastructure, getting into everything, as from C-17 blueprints to AI technology or our most sophisticated submarine technology. They've been able to get into all of that. As I said, I hope we can, but excuse me, you always wonder if we actually can. Obviously, hubris will get you in a lot of trouble, but I wouldn't underestimate the Chinese.
Well, all right, Grant, thank you very much for your time today.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
The FBI has announced plans to relocate its headquarters to the Ronald Reagan Building complex in downtown Washington, D.C. The move comes after scrapping a 2023 plan to build a new campus in Greenbelt, Maryland. The Hoover Building's poor condition has been well documented for years. In 2011, the Government Accountability Office reported that the aging structure suffered from serious maintenance and safety issues. The move ends nearly 20 years of effort to replace the Bureau's crumbling J. Edgar Hoover Building. Officials said the Reagan Building offers a faster, more cost-effective solution. The new location will still be close to the Department of Justice and other national security agencies. The General Services Administration called the move a win for taxpayers, saving billions of dollars on new construction. And don't go away, we have more right after this short break.
Kids love it. Parents trust it. Obviously. Explore GJW Plus Kids Series and Ganjiong Campus courses led by expert educators. This is spectacular. Children will learn values like respect, responsibility, and knowledge in language, science, and more. Wow. All while having fun. Perfect. Subscribe today at GJW Plus Kids, where learning meets fun.
I was a young dad of 3 amazing kids, and just when you feel like life is starting to come together, you get kind of hit in the face. I was born with a congenital heart defect and had open heart surgery as a kid. I was supposed to go to the heart doctor once a year, and I finally went. He listened to my heart, and I'll never forget, he sat back and he said, yeah, it's time for open heart surgery, or you risk your aorta rupturing, and that's it. I was scared out of my mind. The night before my open heart surgery, I made a goodbye video for my kids, just in case I didn't make it. Be strong. Take care of your mom. I love you guys.
Seeing, you know, all the kids hug him goodbye and hoping that they were going to be able to hug him again.
I love you. But I did make it, thanks to the work of the American Heart Association. So that's why I'm asking you to join me. Please call now or go to helpheart.org with your donation to help save lives. You can help get the next person trained in CPR, get the next hospital certified in high-quality cardiovascular care, as well as fund the next medical breakthrough like these heart valves that helped save my life.
I'm most grateful that I get to have a husband that I get to grow old with, and a husband that gets to be there for his children.
Heart disease is the #1 killer in the U.S. That's why it's so important that you call or go online right now with your generous gift. I believe without the American Heart Association, I would not be here today. If this can happen to me, it can happen to you, it can happen to anybody. We all need your help. And your donation can literally help save a life. Please call the number on your screen or go to helpheart.org now with your gift of any amount.
Hi, I'm Ty Pennington, here for Choice Home Warranty. They protect my home from expensive repairs, and they can do the same for you. For a low monthly fee, you get their nationwide network of trusted local technicians with plans that cover repairs and replacements done quickly and the right way. Call Choice Home Warranty now and save big with their special offer of your first month free and free limited roof coverage. Call now.
Call now to lock in your rate and save big. Call 800-360-7824.
Chinese telecoms company Huawei will stand on trial on multiple charges. A federal judge yesterday denied its bid to dismiss a long-running case against it. Huawei, which is closely tied to the Chinese communist regime, stands accused of racketeering, stealing trade secrets from 6 American companies, and committing bank fraud. The trial is scheduled to begin in May of next year. Huawei is accused of using a Hong Kong-based front company to conduct business in Iran in violation of U.S. sanctions. It is also accused of misleading banks to arrange more than $100 million in illegal money transfers. Huawei has pleaded not guilty to the charges. A new documentary traces the life and career of the Japanese chef and restaurateur behind the Nobu restaurant empire. The film hits U.S. theaters today. NTD's Andrew Thomas has the details on the new doc.
Director Matt Turnauer's new film Nobu details the personal and professional life of Nobu Matsuhisa. The documentary explores how Matsuhisa became one of the most recognizable names in fine dining. The film follows Matsuhisa's journey from Tokyo to Los Angeles to New York, and the development of his signature dishes like yellowtail jalapeno.
Every dish is like, for me, like the art piece. You know, have to be the beautiful and also balance the color, and so tuna and the caviar have to be, you know, how much is the amount. So everything have to be the balance. That's why I like to do every dish is more details.
Turnauer said Matsuhisa's story stood out, explaining what interested him about the chef's trajectory.
It's a very intimate story of someone who created something with his hands, literally, and it's also an expansive story of someone who manages a global empire and has to confront a different struggle now, which is 60 restaurants around the world with his name on them.
Nobu recounts how Matsuhisa overcame early struggles, including a restaurant in Alaska that burned down and a period of deep personal crisis. Matsuhisa said he hopes the film will touch young and aspiring chefs.
Don't give up the life. You know, just trying to challenge and just keep doing so step by step. So it means after this movie, so I can share to all of my philosophy to all of my young chefs.
Nobu opens in theaters nationwide Wednesday. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
Okay, the victim's attorney in the Idaho murder case is giving a statement in front of the court. Let's tune into that. And it's happening right now. We have the live feed, and we're going to go in just a moment. Take a look.
Officers and staff who worked tirelessly to obtain the critical evidence that brought justice today, including the Moscow Police Department, the FBI, the Idaho State Patrol, and the Lehigh County Sheriff's Department. We are deeply grateful to Judge Hippler and Judge John Judge before him. We thank you for your diligence, thoughtfulness, and judicial guidance. We appreciate the difficult work you have done to balance the rights of all involved and to uphold the rule of law. You have had our prayers and support throughout this case. We send our love and gratitude to the many family and friends who have supported us, cared for us, and helped us to heal our open emotional wounds. To the good people of North Idaho, who have showered us with kindness and support, we thank you. We also mourn today with you the recent tragic and senseless loss of two brave North Idaho firefighters. We extend our prayers and support to their families. You are not alone. We understand your pain. For all parents who have endured the loss of a child, we know recovery is a long and at times an almost unbearable journey. But you are not alone. And there is hope and there is healing. We thank those in the press who have respected our privacy and the grieving process, and the privacy and grieving process of the families of Kaylee, Xana, and Ethan. To others in the press, we gently encourage you to do the same. We thank the many people across our nation and beyond who have reached out to us, prayed for us, and extended their kindness. You too have helped us on our journey to heal. We now embark on a new path. We turn from tragedy and mourning. We turn from darkness and uncertainty of the legal process to the light of the future. We have closure. We embark on a path of hope and healing. We invite all of those who have mourned with us to join us, and we wish you well. Thank you. I will now share a few words of my own. Over the past 2 years, I've been amazed and humbled by Karen and Scott's strength, endurance, and faith. They have uplifted me and so many. They founded a nonprofit to help others in the name of Maddie. They have been a beacon of hope amidst a dark and tragic time. To those young and bright attorneys out there looking for purpose and meaning in your profession, I invite you to join the effort of crime victim attorneys to bring victims justice with compassion, empathy, humility, and understanding. This case is not the end of violence. This case is not the end of lawlessness. We need your help to bring hope and healing to the innocent caught in the crossfire of life. Thank you all.
Sir, could you just say your name one more time, sir?
Leander James, Leander, last name is James.
And that was the attorney in the Idaho murders case saying that now begins closure and a new journey. Coming up, hundreds of small frequent tremors hit Japan's small islands. But what is causing the quakes? We have that and more when we come back.
There are real consequences to controlled media. And NTD's founders know them firsthand. Our freedom of thought is the price. This is the lesson that guides us in everything we do.
So there's the tear gas.
We know the value of a free society. and we take seriously the responsibility to preserve it. We are NTD.